Welcome back to Triple S Breakdowns. Today we're breaking down House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 7 The Red Sowing. Let's begin. Point number 1.
And if the gods call me to greater things, who am I to refuse them?
Adam got lucky passing that speech check, saying the exact thing that resonates with Rhaenyra considering the whole A Song of Ice and Fire prophecy and how she believes it connects to her. Point number 2. In my breakdown of the previous episode, I mentioned how Alicent received a cut on the same arm as Rhaenyra did in Season 1 Episode 7. It could have just been a coincidence with no intentional meaning, but in the Inside the Episode video for this episode on the Game of Thrones YouTube channel, Alicent's actress Olivia Cook also pointed out the parallel. Point number 3. When Grand Maester Orwell says the scar on Alicent's arm will be easily hidden, I like to think Alicent also took him to be referring to how she's feeling. That the emotional scar she suffered from being removed from the small council and having her voice silenced can also be easily hidden, which leads her later on in the episode to stay out in the Kingswood for an extended period of time. She's hidden herself away. Point number 4. Smart of Aemon to use what happened during the riot to remove Aegon's friends from the Kingsguard. Now he can appoint people more loyal to himself. Point number 5. I think you can read their conversation between Larys and Jasper in two ways. The first is that Jasper wanted Larys to tell Aemon about the rumour because he knew how little proof there was to back it up. Larys though got Jasper to admit how far-fetched the rumour sounded, and they both decided not to inform Aemon, so as to not appear foolish if the rumour turned out to be false. The second is that despite how Jasper says that whispers are the master of Whisperer's domain, so Larys reporting even the most outlandish of rumours wouldn't be unusual, it's his job after all, but since he sided with Aegon over Aemond, he instead convinces Jasper to remain silent and then chooses not to inform Aemond himself. Also, side note, Jasper heard the rumour from his squire, who heard it from a stable hand, who heard it from his fisherman father, who heard it from his shipmate. What is this, Spaceballs?
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
Point number 6. In Fire and Blood, it's actually Rhaenyra's dwarf court jester Mushroom who claims he said for the Blacks to look for more dragon riders
under the sheets and in the wood piles.
And also, it wasn't Rhaenyra he supposedly said it to, but Jace, and it was the prince who was the one who called for anyone, highborn and lowborn, who believed they had the blood of the dragon to try and claim any of the riderless dragons. Point number 7. I find it funny Mysaria says there might even be some Targaryen bastards on Dragonstone, when in Fire and Blood it said that's where Ulf and Hugh actually live, not in King's Landing. Point number 8, just another nitpick. Like Aemond in the previous episode, it seems like a bunch of Oscar Tully's dialogue here was ADR'd.
We recognize the authority of the named heir, Queen Rhaenyra.
Looking at the movement of his jaw when he's facing away from the camera, it doesn't seem to match up with what he's saying. Point number 9, and the most badass person of the episode award goes to Oscar Tully, asserting his authority over the other Rivermen by openly showing his dislike for Daemon and taking every opportunity to subtly insult him, then forcing him to agree and humble himself before everyone because Oscar knows how badly Daemon needs the Rivermen, and the only way they are going to accept Daemon and Oscar's rule over them is if Oscar appears superior to Daemon, not so much in terms of rank, but in respect. Daemon has to show he respects Oscar and the Rivermen to gain their support. Point number 10, on GeorgeRRMartin.com, George released a blog post on May 24th, 2024, criticizing screenwriters and producers for taking great stories and altering them, making them their own, believing they are improving them. But George says they never make it better though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. Many have chosen to believe that in saying this, George is actually referring to Daemon killing Willem Blackwood. As from what I've seen said in several Reddit posts, George's favourite house is House Blackwood, and as such has written them to always be the best and on the right side of history. So the show making a Blackwood in essence a villain and having him be executed, many think this might have annoyed George enough to write this blog post. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Point number 11, a second Black Phillip cameo?
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Point number 12, Viserys appearing in his close to death state from Season 1 Episode 8 was Paddy Considine's idea, according to Ryan Condal in the Inside the Episode video for this episode.
I had a long conversation with Paddy, and he said, I'll play the part, but I want to play the final scene when he offers the crown up. I want to do it in the decrepit makeup.
And it makes sense. This is Viserys at his weakest, and he's offering the crown to Daemon if he still wants it. and if Daemon does, it would be incredibly easy for him to take it from his brother whilst he's in this state. This is the most opportune moment for Daemon to claim the crown for his own, take it from his incredibly weak brother with no witnesses. It brings to mind when Alicent metaphorically seized the crown not for herself but for her son last season, when Viserys was at his weakest, both physically and mentally, and with no witnesses. We know what decision Alicent chose, but alas we don't see what Daemon decides to do here, as he doesn't appear for the rest of the episode. Point number 13, I think the reason why Larys is pushing Aegon so hard to get up and walking, even getting Orwell to help him in this, is because he wants Aegon to replicate the moment of Viserys arriving unexpectedly in the throne room from season 1 episode 8. He wants Aegon to walk through the throne room under his own power and take his place on the throne once again, inspiring and impressing all the witnesses just as his father did. Maybe Larys might even go so far as to tell Aegon to let his crown fall off his head, just to see if Aemond will put it back on as Daemon did when Viserys' crown fell off. Point number 14.
Driftmark must pass to salt and sea.
I am of salt and sea.
Subtlety. Point number 15, Jesus Christ, the whole Rhaenyra, you need to do something, you can't do any of your ideas, and I have none of my own, but you need to do something, just doesn't end. Point number 16, since in Fire and Blood it was Jace's idea to call for dragon seeds to try and claim the riderless dragons on Dragonstone, or Mushroom's idea that he gave to Jace if you choose to believe what Mushroom says, Book Jace then didn't share these same concerns as Show Jace with bastards claiming dragons and how that might affect his claim to the Iron Throne when his mother eventually dies. Point number 17, anyone else find it kind of odd how quickly Clay here deduced Rhaenyra was calling for dragon seeds because she wanted new riders for her riderless dragons? Like, what if it turned out Rhaenyra was only calling for dragon seeds so she could pull a Joffrey when he commanded all of his dad's bastards to be murdered, or because she literally did want to create an army of bastards that would support her, demonstrating that she values even the lowliest of those with Targaryen blood and that they would rather have her on the throne than Aegon. Point number 18, so if Hughes's cousins are Viserys and Daemon, that would mean he is the nephew of Baelon Targaryen, also known as the Spring Prince and Baelon the Brave, who was one of Jaehaerys the Conciliator's sons and supposedly the father of Ulf if what he says is true about his parentage. Jaehaerys and good Queen Alysanne had 13 children, and of those 13, one matches very closely with the description Hugh gives of his mother, Sarah Targaryen. Sarah was incredibly rebellious. She enjoyed playing pranks and stealing from the kitchens, which graduated to her stealing alcohol and getting drunk by the age of 12. She was also very promiscuous. She had practiced kissing naked with her two female friends, Lady Perianne Moore and Lady Alice Turnberry, and she had 3 male favourites, Jonah Mooton, the heir to Maidenpool, Roy Connington, the Lord of Griffin's Roost, and Sir Braxton Beesbury, the heir to Honeyholt, all of whom assumed they were the first to take Sarah's virginity. After her father Jaehaerys learned of this, he first had her confined in her room, but when she tried to escape by stealing a dragon from the dragon pit, he then sent her to Oldtown to join the Faith of the Seven, perhaps permanently, perhaps temporarily, who knows. However, after enduring the life of a silent sister for a year and a half, she fled Oldtown and made her way first to Lys, making a living in a pleasure house by acting as a scepter, before moving to Volantis and becoming the owner of her own pleasure house. She was 34 when the Great Council of 101 AC took place, and 3 of her bastards went to Harrenhal to try and press their claims for the Iron Throne. Sarah herself chose not to attend and stayed in Volantis. So, while the life of Sarah Targaryen does seem to match up with Hugh's description of his mother, some people aren't convinced, like in this Reddit post I found. The major point in the Reddit post against Sarah being Hugh's mother is that whilst Hugh says rich men paid more to do the nasty with women with silver hair, in Lys, silver hair is pretty common amongst both the high folk and small folk, so it shouldn't really be that expensive to find a woman with silver hair to get down and dirty with. Ah, but what about Volantis, I hear you ask? Well, I've got no real idea how common silver hair might be in Volantis, so it might be possible that rich men in Volantis would have had to pay a lot of money to sleep with Sarah while she was running her own pleasure house. I don't know. So maybe it was Volantis that Hugh was born and grew up in for a while before leaving because he was ashamed of his mother. Or maybe, as the Reddit post theorizes, Hugh wasn't born in Volantis nor Lys, but in fact in King's Landing, or maybe on Dragonstone since that's where Book Hugh lived. And his mother wasn't Sarah, but instead a potential bastard daughter of Jaehaerys that he had in either of the 2 times he and his wife Alysanne became estranged. What do you guys think? Was Hugh's mother Sarah Targaryen or just a random bastard daughter of Jaehaerys's? Let me know in the comments below. Point number 19. Oh, Hugh's daughter is dead? That just happened off screen? We didn't get to see Hugh and Kat's reaction to her death? Okay then. Point number 20, I can only imagine the disappointment from Kumas who thought we were going to get naked Alicent when it showed her starting to undo her dress. Point number 21, man, I love The Haunting of Bly Manor, awesome show. Point number 22, I wonder if the Dragon Keepers are just going to head back to King's Landing to look after the dragons there, and if Rhaenyra would even let them leave if she knew that's what they were planning to do. Point number 23, the first person to step forward to try and claim a dragon is called Silver Dennis, and he is in fact a book character. In Fire and Blood, Silver Dennis claims he's descended from one of Maegor the Cruel's bastard sons, and it was a different dragon he tried to claim, not Vermithor, getting his arm ripped off in the attempt and then getting eaten alive along with his sons by a different dragon that showed up. Point number 24, I don't know about you, but I think Rhaenyra could have set this whole seeing if a dragon will accept a new rider thing up a bit better, by like not having them all out on the platform at the same time, instead sending them out one by one so as to, you know, cut down on collateral damage if the dragon gets mad. Like, what if it turned out one of the other dragon seeds Vermithor killed might have ended up being chosen by a different dragon, and now we'll never know because they're fucking dead. Point number 25, now's as good a time as any to go into how Rhaenyra appears to be developing somewhat of a god complex. She's already been feeling like she has a divine purpose by attributing the A Song of Ice and Fire prophecy to herself, but in this episode especially, she's really started to take to the idea that she's been chosen by the gods, to the point that she's feeling like a god herself. In this episode, she sees Seasmoke and Adam bonding as a miracle, somehow ordained as she describes it to Mysaria. Then she tells Jace that she can't gainsay, deny, which the gods have laid before her. Rhaenyra actor Emma Darcy says as much in an interview with GQ magazine that Rhaenyra is falling back on and going whole hog into religious fanaticism around the prophecy and how people view Targaryens and dragons as being gods. What is going through Rhaenyra's mind as she watches the Targaryen bastards be devoured and torched alive? I think she feels like a god. I think she feels super proud. I mean, I think it's uncomfortable. I think there's something actually also that ties into the religiosity. Even being back in proximity to dragons, to that fire, is to somehow be living her birthright, to be soaking up the divine somehow. And do you think that she feels as though the decision to essentially stage a massacre, as you say, is vindicated when the two new bastard dragon riders are found? Totally, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, it's horrendous, but I think she is now this sort of emboldened fanatic, and I think she's experiencing events within a far bigger timeline. She's imagining the history books, and you know what's happening right in front of her is awful, but in 300 to 400 years, what will be documented is possibly a very short war, a huge civil war that was averted, that this was the first ruling queen, that this ruling Targaryen queen expanded the Targaryens' ability to have dragons within their armory. Point number 26, if you believe Hugh is the bastard son of Sarah Targaryen, it's ironic he has claimed Jaehaerys' dragon Vermithor, since Jaehaerys disowned Sarah, his own daughter, having declared her to have always been a whore, forbidden his wife Alysanne from contacting or visiting her, and denied his wife's request to bring their daughter home after 3 of their other daughters had died within the span of 5 years. To round all this off, my most disliked part of the episode goes to how we didn't get to see Hugh and Kat's reaction to their daughter dying. Their daughter being unwell was built up in multiple episodes, so for her death, a major point in that plotline to just happen off screen, is just weird and bad storytelling. And my most liked part of the episode goes to the whole scene of Oscar Tully talking to the Rivermen, asserting his new position of power over them by daring to insult Daemon subtly and not so subtly. Thank you all for watching Triple S Breakdowns. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, be sure to subscribe, and why not leave a comment below with your feedback and anything that I missed but you noticed. I would love to hear from you all. I've been Triple S, you've all been amazing, and I shall see you all in the next video.